I'm Brittany, this is Shenwei, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. Today, we kind of technically began Volume 2 of Guardian at the tail end of the previous stream, where we finished Volume 1. We kind of took a little bit of a sneak peek into Volume 2, so really we are continuing our journey into Volume 2 of Guardian. We are on page 29 for chapter 3. To reiterate, just because I haven't said it in a while, I have seen the show. I have not read the novel. This is a bit of a reading reaction. I know what's coming because of the show, but I don't know what's coming because I haven't read it. So those are the vibes. This is a very reaction, chatty, reading type of thing, more so than any sort of formal like audiobook situation. Dear God, can you imagine? Can you imagine if anybody tried to make this an audiobook situation? I don't think that would chaos. That would be chaos. So, we read for a couple of hours. We take a break somewhere around in the middle. And I believe that's it. Please, no spoilers. No spoilers in the chat. There's always at least like a handful of people who are doing it like me and have, or even more so, they do not know anything about Guardian. At the very least, they haven't read the book. So they are not looking to be spoiled. And we are anti-spoiler here. So please no spoilers in the chat. And we shall begin page 29 for chapter 3. Let me get my face out of the way on the screen here. And when we conduct a field investigation, we need to write a routine report upon our return. I'm a slow typer, so you do it. Chushuja poured a cup of tea and settled leisurely into a chair. I'll dictate. Go Chang Chung, he will dictate, you know what I mean? Go Chang Chung sat upright in front of the computer. At this hour, there were no people left in the Special Investigations Department, only souls floating around. In the darkness, the sole light came from the Criminal Investigation Unit. It wasn't long after the pair had sat down that there was a knock at the door. After Chu Shuja called out in response, a steaming hot tray flew in. The tray held 2 sets of utensils, 4 different dishes, and a soup, and 2 large bowls of rice. The headless ghost's feet didn't touch the floor. It lightly floated over to them and just as lightly set everything out on the table. It even got out a bag of cat food and filled Daching's bowl. Daching gave a reserved nod. Many thanks. Add some whole milk for this venerable one. By now, Go Chang Chung was accustomed to the environment at 4 Bright Avenue. He'd gradually come to realize there wasn't much difference between humans and ghosts. Some ghosts were quite kind, like this headless fellow who always thoughtfully brought a large warm meal when someone had to work overtime to write a report. This gesture made Go Chang Chung, who only had 20 yuan to his name after visiting the post office the day before, feel a spring-like warmth. That's pretty much it, Chushu just said. To get the format right, just work off an older report. Tighten up your language a little. The victim wasn't poisoned at all. They were cursed by a resentful spirit. You know, as in resentful energy. His leg was in excruciating pain, so the spirit who cursed him most likely died of an external injury. Also, the victim's forehead was ashen, and his eyes were red. He had a karmic line under the lower eyelid, but not very deep. There was also a black merit mark behind his ear, but it was faint. Odds are he isn't directly related to the person setting down the curse and doesn't deserve this level of retribution. Initial assessment, this deceased spirit has almost certainly committed serious crimes. Holy shit! Does anything escape Chushuja? We know someone's earning a paycheck. Damn. Go Chang Chung's paws lay flat on the keyboard. His head was swimming, and he couldn't follow Chushuja at all. Chushuja sighed. What do you not understand? What's a karmic line? Dutching's head snapped up, revealing a fresh milk mustache on his black fur. Furious, he demanded, "What is wrong with Zhao Yunlan? These days he's always either in a daze or letting himself think with the wrong head." Does he do a shred of actual work anymore? Has he still not trained the newcomer? Why doesn't this kid know anything? Chushuja couldn't sit there and let a cat insult his boss. He bestirred himself and pointed out, lately Director Zhao's been busy getting things in order to move the office. getting things in order to move the office. Emphasis is important. If he can get everything nailed down, next year we'll move into a space with a large garden. You'll get to have a big cat house hanging in a tree where you can keep an eye on the birds' nests. The cat lord paused, and his anger began to cool. After a moment, thanks to the prospect of the big bird-watching cat house, he decided he could forgive Zhao Yunlan. His whiskers twitched disdainfully as he addressed Go Changcheng. The karmic line has to do with karma. Duh. Actions and consequences. Let's say you're walking down the street and a mugger jumps and kills you for no reason. You didn't do anything to cause that to happen, so it's an undeserved catastrophe. However, if you're in a mugger's way when he comes running out and he stabs you because you were in his way, then you died as a result of being in his way. Now, that's bad timing and inevitable fate, so even though it's a reach, it can be considered a case of cause and effect. But the resulting karmic line would be so light that you could probably brush it off with your hand. The cat continued. Now, suppose a mugger came running down the street, recognized you as the guy his wife cheated on him with, and killed you in a rage. You wouldn't be able to wipe away the karmic line that resulted, but it also wouldn't be too dark. That indicates that there is a connection, but the consequence is disproportionate to the crime, so the cause and effect aren't equal. But if a mugger comes running, Go Changcheng, having now been offed by a mugger multiple times, couldn't help asking, and that mugger realizes I'm his greatest enemy whom he'd been planning to kill and he stabs me to death, the karmic line would be pretty deep, right? Da Qing bobbed his head approvingly. The boy can be taught. Then, what's a merit mark? Go Changcheng asked. People who have accrued merits or sins have a mark behind their ears, Chushu just said. For example, if someone secretly killed someone else, that act would leave a black mark behind their ear, even if no one else ever found out and they never faced legal consequences. People used to talk about damaging one's merits, and that's what they were referring to. Of course, a normal person with no cultivation won't be able to see it. Chushuja glanced at Go Changcheng. He could see a clear white mark behind Go Changcheng's ear. The intense yet gentle light radiating from it was invisible to most people. Even someone whose third eye was open would still have to concentrate hard to see it. Go Changcheng didn't notice. Deep in thought, he asked, "Is the black mark like a fingerprint stained with soot?" Freezing, Chushuja asked, "You've seen it?" With a nod, Go Changcheng recounted his experience of the previous night. Da Qing listened and snorted. If even a mortal passerby could see it with just a glance, that guy's probably due to be struck by lightning any moment now. Seeing that Go Changcheng was lost again, Chushuja explained, "Merits are usually invisible to the naked eye. The thing you ran into probably wasn't human. Yao who cultivate don't dare harm humans at random. The consequences of gaining or losing merits are what guide their behavior. Once a merit mark is dark enough, it will draw divine retribution. Having the heavens smite you is no joke, and if it reaches that point, the guilty creature won't be the only one to suffer. If there are lesser Yao in the area and they're not careful, they'll be affected too. So to keep innocence from harm and to prevent bad apples like those from appearing, the Yao carefully tally everyone's merits at the Yao banquet at the end of each year. If anyone's too out of line, they'll take care of it internally first." Go Changcheng only half understood. "Then will humans also be struck by lightning if they do too many bad things?" "No." Tail up, Da Qing jumped to the ground and curled into a huge ball of fur by the computer's air vent, enjoying the warmth. Have you ever heard the saying, "Those who repair bridges and mend roads go blind, while those who commit murder and arson have many sons"? No, but that sounds like a raw-ass line. Will you, expound, please? The mortal realm has its own laws and regulations. Most people have only this single fleeting life, and it's over before karma even has time to work. When each life is no more significant than an ant, the heavens can't be bothered. Often there's not much point to a mortal cultivating their merits, but if you do enough good deeds, it might someday bring you good luck, though there's no guarantee. Look at you. You possess a remarkable number of merits, but you're still a poor little cabbage with a hard life. No, poor little cabbage! Oh no! The best boy just got a new nickname. Oh dear. Not the poor little cabbage. No. I mean, the accuracy though. Go Changcheng had been quite young when he lost his parents. He was an orphan with a soft nature and no particular talents. Even though Zhao Yunlan liked to joke that his presence brought random good luck, the reality was that Go Changcheng didn't actually have such deep or abundant good fortune. He had the look of someone doomed to a hard life. "Really? I have merits?" Go Cheng Chung was boggled at Da Ching's description. I have a hard life? I don't, though. My life is pretty great. I'm just kind of useless, that's all. Listen! Listen. Don't get me started on my son, okay? He just needs some validation, both without and within. He thought he had no skills or talents. In fact, ever since he was a child, his aunts and uncles had all pitied him. No, this is going to be a random-ass reference, but now I am violently reminded of that one season of the Great British Bake Off where the really adorable younger guy who won had like a terrible family, and you could tell because even though the cameras were on and the family was being, interviewed and talked to because he made it to the finals and everything, even though they were on their best behavior, they were still saying deeply like worrying things. They were like, well, we never thought he would just do anything even remotely like this. It was like all of the implications were that he's just a useless waste of space. We've never put any value in him at all. It's so weird how he's been able to just do this. We never expected it. One line in here and I'm ready to fight. They would rather give their own children a bit less rather than let him go without. Okay. Pity, but not cruel. Maybe. I don't know. It's been 2 sentences. Although his family situation was better than those of his peers, he still grew up to be but a useless piece of kindling, and yet his uncle had ushered him into such a good workplace. His boss and colleagues didn't look down on him for it. Rather, they'd allowed him to stay, and they all took care of him. How could all of that not be considered good fortune? He has... Okay, listen. All right. We're friends. We're bros. We read stuff like this together. We're besties. Okay, so I'm gonna let you in on something. I identify a little too hard with my son. Go Cheng Chung and I have a couple of really significant things in common, and one of those things is minimizing our own like challenges and hardships and just like shitty situations, especially when it comes to our childhood. It took decades for me to actually like stand up and admit that my experience was shit, even if it wasn't literally the worst thing a human can experience. It's a whole thing with worthiness issues and, being emotionally neglected when you're a child. And so when I say that Go Cheng Chung is like calling me out at any specific moment, it probably has something to do with this type of bullshit. If you relate to Go Cheng Chung, me too. I see you. That was a whole moment I just had. Where the fuck did I... The black cat's eyelids had been growing heavy, but at Go Cheng Chung's protest, emphasis is important. He opened them wide again and took another close look. A golden light flashed through those deep green eyes, but before Da Ching could comment, Zhao Yunlan walked in, accompanied by a chilly air and the smell of booze. Hoarsely, Zhao Yunlan asked, "How's the report going?" "Oh," Go Cheng Chung began, but before he could offer an update, Zhao Yunlan cut him off with a wave and stumbled into the bathroom to throw up. Chu Shuzhe, what an entrance! The romantic hero. Chu Shuzhe and Go Cheng Chung hurried after him. Da Ching tutted, then leisurely stretched out his fat paws and followed, swaying as he walked. Dumbass human. The dumbass human in question was clutching his stomach and slumped in a corner of the bathroom, face pale. He seemed unable to stand up. Chu Shuzhe patted his back. "How did you let yourself get this drunk?" he asked, before issuing an order to Go Cheng Chung. "Xiaogo, get him a cup of warm water." Zhao Yunlan accepted the water and rinsed away the taste of vomit before finally rising to his feet unsteadily. "A bunch of assholes kept forcing drinks on me. What was I supposed to do?" "Don't give me that shit," Chu Shuzhe said. "If you honestly didn't want to drink, who'd be able to force you?" Using the wall for support, Zhao Yunlan walked out, avoiding eye contact. In a muffled voice, he said, I've just lost my love. Can a man drown his sorrows? Oh, no. Listen, disaster buys just be like this, okay? It's just who we are. I don't know what to tell you. You know how many disaster buys are theater kids? Anyway. Professor Shen still doesn't want you? Seems the people's teacher isn't blind after all. The crowd is delighted by this news. Daching brushed against Zhao Yunlan's leg as he passed. Hey, you didn't drink and drive, did you? The cops are quite vigilant this time of year. Drinking and driving will land you in jail. Fuck off, Zhao Yunlan growled. Also, drinking and driving is heinously dangerous and nobody should ever do it under any circumstances. I feel like that was probably implied, but I like it when that kind of thing is spelled out. He found a chair to sink into. Dispirited and eyes downcast, he said, Xiao go get Wang Zheng. Tell her to bring all the stuff I need to sign. Lao Chu, get me up to speed. The situation was straightforward, so Chu Shuzhe's explanation was brief. Zhao Yunlan listened with half an ear, eyes downcast. It was impossible to know if his brain was even still working. Having been filled in, he said, still a little drunk, You're sure this case falls under our jurisdiction, right? How about this? Hurry and get the report done tonight. I'll wait here until you're finished, and then I can just stamp it, scan it, and upload it. Hopefully we'll hear back tomorrow and won't have to waste another day. That was fine by Chu Shuzhe. After all, he wasn't the one who just puked up his gallbladder. Wang Zheng came downstairs with a cup of honeyed water. She spread a stack of documents in front of Zhao Yunlan, who barely gave them a glance. He was having too much trouble keeping his eyes open. He scrawled haphazard signatures on everything and then waved Wang Zheng and her shadow away. Don't flaunt your love in front of this poor single man. Hurry up and fuck off. By the time Chu Shuzhe and Go Cheng had the preliminary investigation report ready for him to sign and stamp, Zhao Yunlan was sound asleep, head on the table. Daching woke him with a furious punch in the back. I forgot to ask, how's my super luxurious cat house in the trees coming along? Dazed, Zhao Yunlan said, You stupid big fatty, I'll kill you and eat you. Daching jumped under his shoulder, yowled into his ear. Meow, where's my luxury cat house? That's like the most peak cat behavior from Daching we've seen so far. Zhao Yunlan picked up the honeyed water, which had long since gone cold, and drank it in a single gulp. Then he grabbed the fat cat by his short neck and tossed him aside. It's all but confirmed. If it's quick, we can move in next fall. Hearing that, the black cat immediately changed his tune. His aggressive attitude vanished as he rubbed against Zhao Yunlan's hand and sucked up to him. As always, our boss is so competent. If the nest beside the cat house had eggs in it, that would be perfect. Zhao Yunlan flicked Daching's head away and wiped his hands on the desk. Damn cat, he said coldly. You're getting fur all over my hand. Then, before Daching could explode, Zhao Yunlan speedily signed the report and stood up. That's it for me. Good work today, you two. Wait, Chu Shuzhe said. How did you get here? Taxi, Zhao Yunlan replied. I'll get another one back. It's so late and cold, said Go Cheng kindly. You might not be able to get a taxi here. Why don't I drive? Ow! Chu Shuzhe had stomped on Go Cheng's foot ferociously under the table. Then this busybody shot up out of his chair, pushed Zhao Yunlan back down, and took his phone from his pocket, all before the man could react. Shen Laoshe's already on winter break. I'll get him to come pick you up. Speechless, Zhao Yunlan tried to grab his phone back, but Chu Shuzhe nimbly evaded him, addressing Go Cheng and Daching. Hurry and hold him down! Hold him down! Look how drunk he is. He turned to Zhao Yunlan and said, Listen to me. The way Shen Laoshe looks at you says it all. I don't believe for a second that he doesn't feel anything for you. He must just be deep in the closet. As your co-worker, I'll help you out this one time. Not wingman Chu Shuzhe! What is happening? What? Zhao Yunlan was being restrained by Go Cheng and Daching, who only wanted more chaos in the world. The cat had gone so far as to sit on Zhao Yunlan's stomach, nearly crushing the air out of him and making him keel over on the spot. Please show some mercy, Zhao Yunlan yelped. I have enough trouble without your help. Shen Wei's voice came from the phone. What is it? You know what this is? This is like those stereotypical like teen girl sleepovers where one chaotic gremlin gets an idea to call another girl's like crush or boyfriend or whoever, and then all the other girls have to dogpile on the girl with the boyfriend so that the gremlin can actually make the phone call. That's literally exactly what this is. Susie's calling Todd about taking Rebecca to homecoming. That is what is happening. Chushu-je waggled his eyebrows at Zhao Yunlan. Shen Wei had picked up on the very first ring. That was a level of attentiveness one couldn't even get from their own father. This was what Zhao Yunlan called heartbreak. This is Shen Lao She, right? I'm Zhao Yunlan's co-worker. Our boss drank way too much, and now he's here hugging everyone he can get his hands on. He's throwing the whole office into disarray. I was just scrolling through his phone, trying to figure out who to contact, so I took the liberty of calling you. Could I, trouble you to pick him up? Zhao Yunlan grabbed a pen holder and hurled it at Chushu-je's head, not unlike a teen girl would hurl a pillow. Chushu-je dodged while continuing to talk on the phone. No, it's fine. He's just drunk and throwing things. Okay, we'll take care of him. Please hurry. 4 Bright Avenue, the criminal investigation unit on the 2nd floor. See you soon. Chushu-je hung up and struck a salacious pose, blowing a kiss at Zhao Yunlan. He's at your beck and call. You've got this in the bag. Don't forget my matchmaker's feast. Zhao Yunlan jabbed a trembling finger at him. You bitch! To no one's surprise, Shen Wei arrived promptly. He had only knocked once before the door to the criminal investigation unit opened from within, and a person was shoved out without any warning. Shen Wei caught him, and Zhao Yunlan fell headfirst into his arms. Oh dear. But even if he couldn't stand up straight, Zhao Yunlan still had some fight in him. He pointed back into the office at Chushu-je. Just you wait, you little bitch. It's too funny. Chushu-je squeezed a smile out of his bitter melon face. Hi-yo, I'm so afraid. Shen Wei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hey, everybody drinks. He nudged Zhao Yunlan's shaking hand down. That's enough. If I don't deal with you right now, you'll never know your place, Zhao Yunlan raged. He tore free of Shen Wei's hold, throwing himself toward Chushu-je. Shen Wei sighed. He slung one arm around Zhao Yunlan's waist and grabbed Zhao Yunlan's wrist with the other hand, effectively disarming him. He gave a nod to the onlookers inside and said, I apologize for the disturbance. I'll take him home now. With that, he dragged Zhao Yunlan away. Audrey, yes, we love our service tops with disaster bottoms. The dynamic that I will never, ever, ever get tired of. Not ever. Not once. You could pry that from my cold, dead hands. It'll never happen. That was the end of the chapter, by the way. We're on chapter 4 on page 39. Having truly gotten himself good and hammered, the stumble in Zhao Yunlan's step was genuine, but a visit to the porcelain god and a good nap had dealt with the worst of the booze's effects. By now, his mind had already cleared up, but being alone with Shen Wei, with the soul-executing emissary, was excruciatingly awkward. Since Chushu-je had said he was too drunk to see straight, Zhao Yunlan decided to just roll with it. Shen Wei had left the car running to keep it warm as he went upstairs to collect him. Zhao Yunlan noticed it as soon as he got in, and the gesture warmed his heart. He slumped against the seat, hiding by pretending to be asleep. Shen Wei gave him a light nudge. Wait until you're home to sleep, all right? It's easy to catch a cold outside. Zhao Yunlan played dead. Giving up on waking him, Shen Wei leaned over and buckled Zhao Yunlan's seatbelt. At such close range, Shen Wei's scent filled his nostrils. In sharp contrast to the frigid smell that surrounded the emissary, Shen Wei's scent was refreshing, like the lingering hint of soap on fresh laundry. Beneath the emissary's black cloak, a symbol of terror for humans and ghosts alike, was someone pristine and gentle. There was a rustling noise off to the side. Shen Wei took out a bottle of water, filled a little cup, and then swirled the cup twice in his hand. The chilly water started to steam. "At least take a sip," he said, holding the cup to Zhao Yunlan's lips. Zhao Yunlan cracked his eyes open. In the darkness of the car, the only light seemed to come from Shen Wei's eyes. That light was exactly right. Not too dim, but not blinding. Zhao Yunlan's heart thudded heavily in his chest. He drained the cup while Shen Wei held it, then let Shen Wei get a throw blanket from beneath the seat and drape it over him. Finally, Shen Wei turned up the heat and began to drive, pulling smoothly out onto the road. As he drove, Shen Wei used one hand to tuck the blanket under him. He gave a faint sigh. And then, barely audible, Shen Wei murmured, "Why are you so appallingly bad at taking care of yourself?" Zhao Yunlan was just resting his eyes, but as he listened to the winter wind outside the car window, he found himself comfortably curling his hands and feet. It had been a long, long time since he'd felt such a warmth on a cold night. In the 2 weeks since getting back from the snowy mountain, he hadn't contacted Shen Wei even once. People around Zhao Yunlan came and went. When he was single, he was happy to walk the blurry line between romance and friendship to preserve his confidence. He'd pursued Shen Wei the same way he'd pursued plenty of others, but somehow, ever since the hope of romance between them seemed to wither on the vine rather than blossoming, everyone else he met seemed dull and uninteresting. He had become a celibate old monk overnight. I love that this is how he characterizes being absolutely motherfucking in love. Is he aware of this yet? Absolutely not. But the way that his brain has defined this for him is interesting. But recently, in the darkest hours of the night, when dreams left him dazed and disoriented, his thoughts would return to that day when his stomach had acted up and he'd forced Shen Wei to stay with him at home. How he'd slept nestled deep in his blankets as Shen Wei quietly read and watched over him, while delicious smells wafted from the kitchen. In that moment, Shen Wei had struck him in the heart, fierce and unerring. Okay, a little bit more aware than previously thought. Hang on, just gonna make a note. That's page 41 of volume 2. Okay. Deep down, Zhao Yunlan had always yearned for a certain kind of life. A life two people shared companionably, where they could even enjoy silence together. Neither would find the other annoying or hound them or try to pick fights. They would make space for one another, but there would always be warmth between them. Like they had always lived together, existing in their own private world, needing nothing but each other. He's just a big fucking sappy romantic, this guy. Oh, swagger this. Date everyone that. Casual romantic over here. Okay. Also, that deeply reminds me of that one Florence and the Machine song. Why can I not remember the exact name of it? It is the last song on her album. It's only my favorite album from her. Oh, shit. Something... No Choir. The song is called No Choir. It is exactly what that paragraph describes. And then there had been that moment in the dilapidated little hut on the mountain, when he jolted awake at midnight to find Shen Wei's eyes burning into his. You always want what you can't have, right? Zhao Yunlan pressed his face into the blanket, a self-deprecating, bitter smile twisting his lips. What kind of masochist was he, unable to let any of that go? Zhao Yunlan lived quite close to 4 Bright Avenue. He was still tangled in his messy thoughts when they arrived. Shen Wei helped him up to his apartment and out of his coat, then hung the coat up, laid him down on the bed, and disappeared into the bathroom in search of a damp cloth. He just wants to be taken care of. He just wants to be taken care of. Okay. Even though Zhao Yunlan gave every sign of being blackout drunk, Shen Wei was the picture of propriety. He wiped Zhao Yunlan's face, hands, and feet carefully, not touching him anywhere else, and tucked him in. After that, out of habit, Shen Wei began tidying the room. He even made sure to take away the half-full cup of water on the bedside table, in case Zhao Yunlan tossed and turned in the night and knocked it over. It was clear to Zhao Yunlan that he held a special place in Shen Wei's heart. He felt as though all his life, people, other than his parents and cat, that is, had always either needed something from him or depended on him. No one had ever placed him at the tip of their heart like this before. Listening to Shen Wei puttering around so carefully and quietly, his own heart was in utter disarray. He just wants to be taken care of. He just wants to be number one on someone's list. Deeply relatable. Absolutely. Absolutely relatable. Where? Oh, I'm over here. Once Shen Wei had finished tidying up, he looked over to where Zhao Yunlan lay motionless. He seemed so quiet. Shen Wei hesitated, torn, and found he couldn't bear to leave. He allowed himself to go stand by the bed, feasting on the sight of Zhao Yunlan. Dear God, Zhao Yunlan thought, desperately maintaining his pretense of sleep. The tension threatened to crush his heart. I'm begging you, stop looking. If you're planning to leave, hurry up. This is going to be the death of me. Shen Wei didn't hear his thoughts, nor did any god. Some time passed, and then, as though bewitched, Shen Wei slowly bent down, leaning in close enough to feel Zhao Yunlan's breathing. On the brink of losing his mind, Zhao Yunlan, through sheer force of will, managed to keep playing dead. It was more than Shen Wei could possibly stand. Pressing his hands to the bed on either side of Zhao Yunlan, he let their lips brush together, soft as a dragonfly dipping its tail into the water. It lasted only a moment. His eyes were closed, as though he had taken immeasurable comfort from that most fleeting contact. His heart thundered inside his chest, offering the illusion of mortality. For just a second, Shen Wei almost felt human. There, in the dim light, he'd stolen a kiss from the love of his life. His heart soared with elation and sweetness. Even if he had died then and there, he wouldn't have uttered a word of complaint. Zhao Yunlan's mind, however, was perfectly empty. Inside his heart it felt as though a single strand of hair bore a weight of thousands of pounds. That strand had been stretched past endurance, and now it finally snapped without a sound. Shen Wei had supposed that the tiniest of stolen kisses would go unnoticed, but before he could straighten back up, the apparent corpse on the bed animated, grabbing him with both arms. Shocked and caught wholly off guard, Shen Wei was dragged down. Zhao Yunlan aggressively flipped them both over, pressing their bodies together. Nobody move. Nobody move. No, nobody breathe. The scent of alcohol still lingered on Zhao Yunlan's breath, but his gaze was clear. Peering into Shen Wei's eyes, he asked quietly, "My lord, what are you doing?" Shen Wei's mouth opened, but he was too panicked to speak. Zhao Yunlan stared at him for a while, complex feelings passing through his eyes. Then he suddenly took hold of Shen Wei's chin. "And here I always thought my lord was a gentleman. I never imagined you were the type to go around stealing kisses in the dead of night. Such an unprofessional kiss at that." Shen Wei was at a loss for words. Even when Zhao Yunlan's kiss landed on his lips, Shen Wei was still stupefied. He was certain that he was having an absurd but beautiful dream. Helplessly, he reached out and hugged Zhao Yunlan close. The kiss was both exquisitely skilled and playful, threatening to effortlessly peel back Shenwei's defenses and leave him at Zhao Yunlan's mercy. Nose to nose, Zhao Yunlan said lightly, "Now that is what an expert kiss should be like." Alright. The soft bed, warm from Zhao Yunlan's body, ensnared Shen Wei like a web. He was securely trapped and unable to utter a word. Zhao Yunlan's top 2 buttons were undone, exposing narrow, beautiful collarbones that still smelled faintly of cologne. A single whiff nearly stopped Shen Wei's breath, sealing his mouth. He was not sure which of them was intoxicated. Zhao Yunlan brushed the stray hairs on Shen Wei's forehead back. Mouth at Shen Wei's ear, he said, "Let me ask you something. You've been avoiding me for ages, and yet you've never just completely stayed away. Did you do something terrible to me once, or are you afraid of falling into my trap? What are you so worried about? Human and ghosts not belonging together?" The last bit of flushed color drained from his face as Shen Wei recoiled. His hands curled into fists on either side of Zhao Yunlan. Then he reached out to push him away. Grabbing Shen Wei's hand, Zhao Yunlan forced his fist open finger by finger. "Stop trying to fight me, and stop trying to fight yourself. Shen Wei, whatever you are, the soul-executing emissary or something else, I'm brave enough to say I'm into you. What about you? Do you have the balls to admit it?" I am going to consume this microphone. Shen Wei squeezed 2 words from between his teeth. "Let go." Zhao Yunlan ignored him. "No, I'm just a mortal." He forced his fingers between Shen Wei's, intertwining them and then gripping tight. Their hands were locked together as if they were grappling, knuckles turning blue. A mortal's life is just like an ant's. The seasons blur together and then it's over, just like that. Death and farewells are written in our fates. I'm not afraid of destiny or being struck down by lightning, and I'm not afraid of you. I don't know how long my life will be. I could die tomorrow, and I don't want... Shen Wei clapped a hand over Zhao Yunlan's mouth, cutting off that inauspicious sentence. The two looked at each other for a long time. Finally, Shen Wei shook his head very, very slowly. Zhao Yunlan's tense shoulders sagged. With a disappointed look, he released Shen Wei and got up. "Forget it, then." I'm gripping Shen Wei almost as hard as Zhao Yunlan was. He spoke as if he were perfectly clear-headed, but as soon as his feet hit the floor, he lost his balance. His legs gave out, sending him to his knees. The alcohol still sloshing around in his belly slammed into his skull. He moaned in pain, clutching his head. Shen Wei hurried to help him up. "I thought you weren't drunk." Zhao Yunlan was in a peculiar state where he could reason clearly but couldn't walk in a straight line. It left him blunter and more forward than he might otherwise have been. Unsteadily, he waved Shen Wei's hand away and opened the bottom drawer of the bedside table. He pulled out a plastic document holder and slapped it down in front of Shen Wei. "Open it," he ordered, words slurring together. After a moment's hesitation, Shen Wei took it and flipped it open. He found himself looking at a property deed for a residence with a garden. The address placed it near DCU's University Road. Zhao Yunlan slumped against the bedside table and stretched his long legs out in front of him. He took a cigarette from his pants pocket, only managing to light it after 3 or 4 tries. He smoked the entire cigarette before speaking again. Voice low, he said, I bought it before we went to the mountains. The SID office is going to be relocating, so I've been looking all over for a new place. I passed by this neighborhood and decided to check this one out, and it just felt right somehow. I got carried away and bought it, even though it wiped out my savings. Then I started thinking about how good the transportation options are in that area, and how close it is to DCU. I thought if you were willing to be with me, you wouldn't need to drive to work anymore and you could sleep a little later in the mornings. I know it's pretty big, definitely more than 2 people need, but that means you can have a large study, and I want to get a dog, one that's not too bright. Once in a while, we could stage a great battle of the cat and dog or something, like some special New Year's entertainment. Oh my God! No, I'm sorry. He went full U-Haul. He's already been like married 10 years. He already has the house and the animals and the picket fence. He's got the picket fence. He bought the picket fence. I'm sorry. I might actually be losing my sanity right now. I feel my rational brain just departing up into the ether. I can't. Woo! Hang on. Let me get it together. Ooh. Okay. He's like, I've thought out the minutia of our day-to-day life as we live in eternal bliss. Why aren't you on the same page? What is this? I mean, I did this, but if you're not into it, that's okay, I guess. An uncontrollable... I'm too excited. That was clearly the wrong time to try to read again. An uncontrollable tremor overtook Shenwei's hands. The file folder crinkled as he trembled. But then, surprise, coming back from the Great Northwest, it turned out that you can just teleport from one side of the city to the other. Driving, getting up early, Zhao Yunlan chuckled. But obviously none of that was the point. I was mostly out looking because we need a new office, not because of you. I just thought about that stuff while I was at it. Shenwei slowly met Zhao Yunlan's gaze. It seemed much the same as always, but with the teasing stripped away, what remained was the gentleness Zhao Yunlan ordinarily kept deeply hidden. Catching just a glimpse of that rare sight was enough to compel one to drown in it. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Hang on. Page 46. For Shenwei, it felt like being torn in two. Half of him was nearly swept away with joy. The other half had plummeted into the depths of the Huangquan. He was on the verge of losing his mind entirely. Millennia of loneliness and desolation had failed to drive him to insanity, but a few offhand sentences passing through the lips of this one man were enough to send his emotions careening out of control. The ancient line was painfully true. For love, the living may die, and the dead may live again. Could those unwilling to die or those unwilling to live again even profess to feel love? Hang on a second. Page 47. Hang on, that comes with a footnote. From the Ming Dynasty opera, The Peony Pavilion by Tong Shanzhu, an epic romance that transcends the bounds of mortality. I want to fight. I'm ready to fight her. I'm ready to fight Priest. I'm ready to throw hands. I am now officially ready to, yeah. Yeah. We're going to revisit that. For love, the living may die, and the dead may live again. Could those unwilling to die, or those unwilling to live again, even profess to feel love? When your very soul was being turned inside out, how could you even be sure if you were in the present moment or a day in a distant past? Unattainable hope was like a gossamer thread sustaining him. Shenwei had believed that Zhao Yunlan would never know he was the sole reason for Shenwei's existence, or that he alone was why Shenwei had made it this far. She keeps attacking me. So really, my urge to fight her is just self-defense. The most determined of hearts could never be broken by winds that might cut you to ribbons, or by frost that pierced you like a sword. That power belonged to the open hand extended to you during a long journey, or to the tender voice saying, "Come home," in your ear. For a second, Shenwei was gripped by the desire to interrogate the heavens themselves. Why did he have to be the sole executing emissary? Ants, which perished almost as soon as they were born, were permitted to pair off under the sunlight and rain. Birds, which lived out in the open, were allowed to find safe harbors surrounded by branches. Among all things that existed between the earth and sky, he had been born peerless and lonely, but there wasn't even the tiniest fragment of space meant for him. Everyone feared him, offered him deference, plotted against him, or even schemed incessantly to bring about his death. Having been born from brutality, mercilessness, and chaos itself, it was inevitable that he was sometimes unable to rein in the violence within his heart. His desire to kill was like the tides. He yearned to cut down every last one of those people. But he was held back by a sworn oath known only to himself. Thousands of years had passed, and yet Shenwei dared not betray that oath in even the most minuscule way. It was his last remaining connection to that person. I have metaphorically peeled my skin off and jumped in acid at this point. Shenwei's eyes were so red that they seemed to brim with blood. "My very existence is inauspicious," he said. "I can only bring you harm." A corner of Zhao Yunlan's lips quirked, revealing 2 shallow dimples on his cheeks. "I guess we'll see if my health bar can outlast your attacks then, huh?" I realize there's probably multiple meanings to that, but excuse me, sir? Shenwei, not realizing he was joking, did not reply. He pinched his own palm and had nearly torn his flesh open when he finally burst out, "How can you force me this way?" Zhao Yunlan sighed as his smile faded. He stubbed his cigarette out in the ashtray. The very first time he'd laid eyes on Shenwei, he'd known he liked him. He'd initially thought it was just because Shenwei was so perfectly his type, and had let himself gloss over how natural and the instant familiarity between them felt. Zhao Yunlan had yet to look into the soul executing emissary's past. But seeing Shenwei like this, how could he possibly ask him directly? There was always the sense that some tremendous anguish was locked away in Shenwei's heart. Why else did he bring such coldness with him every time he appeared in those black robes? Didn't he feel cold? "Sorry," Zhao Yunlan said. He gently eased Shenwei's clenched hand open, holding it in his own. Then he leaned down and placed a soft kiss on the back of Shenwei's hand, casually tossing the incredibly expensive property deed aside. "If this is too much for you, Just pretend I never said a word. Okay. Can't throw the book. Have to read it. Can't read the book if I throw it. Can't read the book if I open the window to my immediate right and chuck it clear out into my front yard. Can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. Mm-hmm. Shenwei closed his eyes, overwhelmed by his own shamelessness. If he'd wanted to hide, why couldn't he have just behaved himself and stayed beneath the Huangquan? If he had, Zhao Yunlan could have lived dozens of lives without even the slightest chance that the two of them would meet. Zhao Yunlan would never have even known of his existence. But he'd been unable to help himself, unable to resist. Without a hint of shame, he'd put himself on a street corner only to suddenly act chaste and hard to get when someone took notice. He had always despised himself, but this was a new pinnacle of self-loathing. Zhao Yunlan massaged his temples lightly. In a barely audible voice, he said, "I have plenty of assets, but I doubt they'd appeal to you. All I really have to offer is my heart, but if you won't accept it, then just forget about this." The words smashed into Shenwei's heart like a stone, unearthing an ancient memory of a voice right by his ear, speaking in the exact same offhand way. "I hold all the world's famous mountains and rivers in my hand, but what of it? They're nothing but a bunch of rocks and wild waters. Of all that I am, the only part worth anything may be my heart. If you want it, it's yours." The man before him was the same as always, as if the past had come back to life. Shenwei abruptly wrapped his arms around Zhao Yunlan, holding on with what seemed like every ounce of his strength. He squeezed until the man's bones cracked from the force as he buried his face against Zhao Yunlan's neck. Then he leaned past Zhao Yunlan's shoulder and bit into his own wrist, tearing into it so brutally that the bone was nearly exposed. Do not! There's art. You know what? We'll go ahead and show the art now. Okay. We'll show the art now. Sure. Uh-huh. This is the art. This is the art. This is the art. I tell you what. Guardian wins the art war specifically on the basis of giving us the art of what we really want to see. They really dialed in to the images that we would claw people to death for, and they gave it to us. Yeah. I'm no longer here. I've been gone for a while. I'm trying to let her finish. I'm trying to get to the end of the chapter. I am white-knuckling it through the rest of this chapter. But she just keeps going. The crushing weight of thousands of Zheng of the netherworld bore down on him. He was unable to weep, but in the throes of such pain, perhaps he could only shed blood in lieu of tears. The scent of blood immediately told Zhao Yunlan that something was very wrong. "Shenwei, what are you doing? Let go!" Shenwei only clutched him even tighter. A human life only lasted a few dozen years. It came and went like a shimmer of light on water. A single thought filled Shenwei's mind. Was he not worthy of even this tiny time? Stop! I've been dead for like 5 pages. Shenwei. Taking advantage of Shenwei's daze, Zhao Yunlan finally struggled out of his grip, only to find the bedsheet stained crimson. Is your head full of holes? It's not like I abducted you in broad daylight to make you mine. When you shook your head, did I say anything? Did I push? Did you need to start spilling blood just to deter me? Cursing and fuming, he jumped up to get his first aid kit, but Shenwei suddenly grabbed hold of him again. I accept! What? Wait. Hold up. Hold up. Hang on. Hang on. I accept, Shenwei said quietly. Zhao Yunlan froze for a second, but Shenwei smiled, sounding almost calm, as he repeated, I accept. In this lifetime, whether dead or alive, I won't let you go again. Even if one day you've had enough or tire of me, even if you want to leave me, I'll never let you go. The bitch just said, let's move in. Did he really just turn around and say, I accept the U-Haul? Let's pick out China patterns? What throw pillars are gonna go... Throw pillars? What throw pillows are gonna go on the couch in our living room? What kind of rugs do you like? How many kids? How many dogs? How many cats? Is the apartment near any good schools? Okay. It was another few frozen moments before Zhao Yunlan processed that Shenwei was telling him how he felt. There was no room for relief. Mostly, he just felt exhausted. Well, at least I'm not the only one, okay? Wasn't being in a relationship all about the give and take of flirtation, romance, flowers under the full moon? Why was it about blood when it came to him? It's still, the chapter still isn't ending. It suddenly struck him that Shenwei was probably the type of person who'd made "watch out for the quiet ones" such a cliche. He was ordinarily meek, with no sign of a temper, but his silence hid twisted things, and his honest appearance masked his perversion. What if Clark Kent was Batman? I'm telling you. When everything came bubbling up to the surface, it was like a nuclear explosion. Wordlessly, Zhao Yunlan retrieved the first aid kit from under his bed and took out a disinfecting wipe. He sat on the edge of the bed, brow furrowed, and tugged Shenwei's wounded wrist toward himself to wipe it clean. The blood was as cold as its owner. Shenwei's eyes were still locked on him. If you must die, it must be in my arms and by my hand. Please shut up. Zhao Yunlan applied heavy pressure to Shenwei's wrist. Why do you go insane at the drop of a hat? This is not the end of the chapter. After ministering to Shenwei's wound, Zhao Yunlan was completely worn out, mentally and physically. He was out like a light the second his head hit the pillow, this time with no pretense. Shenwei looked at the tight, neat bandage wrapped around his wrist. Holding his breath, he eased himself under the blankets and lay down, feather light, on the empty half of the bed Zhao Yunlan had left for him. After a long moment, he took Zhao Yunlan's hand in his and held it against his chest, closing his eyes. It was a rare, peaceful night of sleep. Early the next morning, a bizarre assortment of smells coming from the kitchen brought Shenwei out of his slumber. He lay still as a stone for half a minute before remembering where he was. As he looked at the incriminating evidence on his wrist, a hint of red tinted his usually pale face. What had he said and done the night before? How had things gone so far? Yeah, not the only drunk one in the room, by the way. You slipped on impulse and you now have a life partner. Congratulations. You're married now. You have a husband. They literally just got married in Vegas after a drunken bender. Just then, a thick and muddy voice said, "Morning." Shenwei trembled as he hastily looked up to see Zhao Yunlan with a pair of chopsticks in his mouth and a plastic board in his hands. The board was at least a meter long, with a row of 5 indentations on top, each one just big enough to hold a large bowl or a medium-sized plate. 5 places. If there weren't many people eating, it was just enough to carry the standard 4 dishes and a soup all at once. How lazy must someone have been to invent such a magical object? This is really what we're talking about right now? The marvel in Zhao Yunlan's hands held more wonders. 5 bowls of cup noodles in a neat row, all still steaming. The combined aroma verged on indescribable. Shenwei could only stare. Zhao Yunlan boldly plopped himself onto his sofa. With the confidence of a leader addressing a country. With the confidence of a leader addressing a country. He said, from left to right we have... this is the funniest shit. From left to right, we have braised beef noodles made with water, aged pickled cabbage noodles made with milk, mushroom and chicken noodles made in the microwave with some water and butter, seafood noodles, though I thought they were a little bland, so I added a spoonful of sweet bean sauce, and finally bacon cream noodles made with hot coffee. That one should be quite good. Pick whichever one you'd like to have. A touch of embarrassment set in after he reached the end of the list. I don't really know how to make anything else, but since you finally visited, I thought only 2 cup noodles would be enough. Wouldn't be enough. So he'd made 5. How generous? Shenwei's gaze swept across the 5 steaming cup noodles. He was at an utter loss as to how Zhao Yunlan hadn't died of food poisoning yet. We are Jesus Art. We are like way over time to be taking a break. I don't care. I'm going to the end of this goddamn chapter 4 if it kills me, and it might. Art. Sorry, art. We have ramen art. We have noodle art. Hang on. They're just sitting here the morning after they're eloping. Preoccupied with the noodle situation. But if it was something Zhao Yunlan had made, even if it were a bowl of rat poison, Shenwei was still willing to eat it all without the tiniest change in expression, though he made sure to choose the most normal cup noodles offered. He also allowed himself a subtle comment. Processed foods like these aren't good for the body. You shouldn't eat too much of them. With total honesty, Zhao Yunlan said, Money's been tight recently. If my year-end bonus doesn't come soon, I'll have to go beg for food at my parents' place. Unless you want to sponsor me, I can warm your bed. He just comes out of nowhere sometimes. Just like a fucking freight train in a desert. He just comes clear out of absolutely nowhere and runs me over. Shenwei choked on a mouthful of slightly spicy soup. He turned and started coughing violently. Zhao Yunlun laughed, then casually said, "By the way, the end of the year is coming up. Almost time to tally up everyone's merits. There have been more thieves than usual in the mortal realm lately, while the Yao and Ghost cultivators have all started making last-minute efforts to do better." Now he's just talking business? Shenwei cautiously sat up. Primly, he said, "Doing good for the sake of doing good only results in shallow karma. How could merits be gained so easily?" Perhaps Zhao Yunlan had temporarily disabled his taste buds as he was drinking the magical mix of coffee and cup noodle soup without batting an eye. You know, someone out there is still committing crimes despite the pressure. The first of the 4 hallowed artifacts was the reincarnation dial, the second was the mountain river awl, and the third was the merit brush. 2 of the 4 had already appeared in the world, and Shenwei couldn't help being a little sensitive to the word merit. He was about to ask for more details when Zhao Yunlan's phone, which had been thrown to the side, suddenly rang. Zhao Yunlan set down his cup noodles and checked the caller ID. Speak of the devil, here they come again. Only a single night had passed, but 2 more people had been hospitalized. Like the first, they weren't ill or injured, nor had they suffered an accident. They just clutched their legs, writhing on the floor in pain. The patients' families had called the police at 5 a.m. Poisoning cases had a tremendous negative impact on local law and order. The situation was worsening right at the end of the year when the government was working hard to maintain stability. With absolutely no idea what else to do, the district bureau higher-ups could only keep harassing Zhao Yunlan. Chu Shujia and the others were already sure the case would fall into the Special Investigation Department's lap sooner or later. In the morning, as soon as the workday started, they would submit their report. Having no other choice, Zhao Yunlan agreed to go to the hospital and see the situation for himself. Chapter over! Holy God! Listen. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. Okay. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're a little bit late, but we're going to take a very quick break. Very quick. Because I need to jog a lap around the sun. Just real quick. And then I'll be right back. And we'll read chapter 5. Let me double check to make sure that it's not some long... Hang on. Let me do page math real quick. Yeah, we should be able to get through chapter 5 at least by the end of the episode. The stream. I don't know. I'm walking away for a few minutes. Go stand up. Go lift a car with your bare hands. That's what I'm about to do. Okay? I might just relocate my house with my own strength. I'll be right back in just a second. Just a few minutes. I swear I just need to pace. Maybe fly to Saturn. I'll be right back. Hang on. Where the fuck is my lo-fi? God damn it. I'm normal. I'm real normal. I'm super normal. Okay. I'll be right back. hello. We're back, I guess. I'm feeling a little bit like that Ben Affleck smoking meme, but here we are. Oof. Okay, we're on. I'm just checking to make sure that I'm like framed correctly. Also, the stream is being a little weird. It looks like the stream is lagging back like 10 minutes or something like that, but you guys are responding to things that are happening like the regular latency should, you know, like it's fine. So that's just weird a little bit. So I can't really go off of that. So I'm just flying blind, I guess. But nothing seems to be actually wrong. So we're just going to continue as always. Hang on. I know I just took a break, but I need another break. I may have gone a little bit catatonic while I was making tea. And that's why it took an extra couple minutes, because I literally had to snap out of whatever the hell that was. We're on chapter 5, page 57. Okay. Once notified, Go Cheng Chung didn't dare make Zhao Yunlan wait. Scared of being caught in the morning rush hour traffic, he opted to go to the hospital by subway. As a result, he was out waiting in front of the hospital for over half an hour, suffering in the bitterly cold wind. He was dangerously close to becoming an ice sculpture by the time Zhao Yunlan arrived, with Shen Wei in tow. Now and for the rest of his many lives, evidently. They're going to come back with wedding rings and photos at the Vegas altar. Yeah. Go Cheng Chung was frozen to the point that his tongue was stiff. Director Zhao! A trail of snot crept down his face. He sniffed it back up, which did nothing to improve his image, and sneaked a confused glance at Shen Wei. Why did Director Zhao bring family along on a case? Maybe Shen Lao She is sick? Family! Despite his curiosity as he watched Shen Wei and Zhao Yunlan speaking quietly to each other, Go Cheng Chung didn't have the nerve to intrude by getting any closer. He only dared to follow a few steps behind, shoulders and head bowed, like a little eunuch trailing along in their wake. Flu season was in full swing in Dragon City. I can't believe we're just moving on past this. I'm all right. I'm okay. Was that, I'm going to try to phrase this in as vague a language as possible for the people who haven't read the book or seen the show. So in extremely vague language, for the people who have seen the show, is that scene, that previous scene, was that roughly in the place of that one scene in the show? Because I can't exactly remember when that scene at Zhao Yunlan's apartment, you know the one, happened exactly. So I'm wondering if that was the show's version of what we just read. I feel like it was, but I can't quite remember where that happened in the show. No? Then what? Okay. Flu season was in full swing in Dragon City. So the hospital was bursting with patients. Lagging behind, Go Cheng Chung was swept aside by the crowd. As he struggled to break free of the current people, he stood on tiptoes, trying to locate the pair. What the Okay, hang on. We have confusing art. But by the time he managed to break free, Zhao Yunlan and Shen Wei had disappeared. Fortunately, he'd been there once before and knew where to go. When he couldn't find Zhao Yunlan, he headed up to the inpatient department. I'm permanently fucked up for the rest of this stream. On the 6th floor. Just as he arrived, a group of doctors and nurses rushed past him with a patient. As he scrambled out of their way, Go Cheng Chung happened to catch a glimpse of someone outside the window. The 6th floor window. What he was seeing was clearly impossible. Every instinct Go Cheng Chung possessed told him that something was off. His pulse raced. But human nature being what it was, fear robbed him of the ability to look away. It was a man outside the window, skinny and hunched, wearing a ragged knit hat that revealed frost-bitten ears and a shock of white hair. He was bundled in a large cotton jacket, and he was floating in midair, entirely lacking his legs. Go Cheng Cheng could see that the man's legs had been chopped off just below the pelvic joint. The hacked stumps were plainly visible, with short lengths of bone jutting out from the rotting, bloody flesh. Blood seeped inside the building through the window frame, dripping and pooling on the floor. It seemed as though the bleeding would never stop. Yet not a single passing doctor or nurse noticed a thing. It was like no one could see the man silently staring into the inpatient area. Have some art. While I cope with the whiplash. Oh. Whew. Half of his face was caked with dirt and blood. His eyes bugged out as if he were a terrifying wax figure. He just kept staring coldly at all the people coming and going, one corner of his cracked lips tugging upward. His expression was indescribably resentful. Without warning, a hand clapped down on Go Cheng Cheng's shoulder. By then, his fear had escalated enough to freeze even his ability to scream. Instead, he shot up into the air without a sound, heart lurching and thumping within his chest. Seeing Go Cheng Cheng pale with terror and doubled over, with his legs squeezed together so tightly, Zhao Yunlan said, "What's up with you?" Go Cheng Cheng's mind went blank. He had temporarily forgotten all human language and was unable to speak a single word. Instead, he raised a shaky hand and pointed at the window at the end of the hallway. Zhao Yunlan's confused gaze followed Go Cheng Cheng's finger and simply saw a window. A window no one would call pristine, but it was far from filthy. There was nothing of note other than dust and a little bit of frost. Baffled, Zhao Yunlan asked, "What did you see?" In a bit of a panic, Go Cheng Cheng looked back to the window and saw nothing at all. He scratched his head and checked that the coast was clear. Keeping his voice low, he described what he'd seen, tripping over his words. Zhao Yunlan's brow creased as he studied his underling. Nothing of what he knew about Go Cheng Cheng suggested that the little dumbass had the intellect and balls to successfully lie to his boss's face, so he probably wasn't bullshitting. Zhao Yunlan went over to the window and extended his hand. When Clarity didn't react, he swiped his hand over the windowsill and cracked open the rusting window. Bitingly cold northwest winds surged inside, but that was all. He felt nothing but the chill. A nurse rushed over. "Excuse me, sir, but can you close the window? If you want some fresh air, please go outside. We have patients here who need to stay warm." Zhao Yunlan quickly closed the window and turned to her with an apologetic smile. The young nurse, confronted with a high-caliber hottie, flushed red. Muttering a half-serious complaint under her breath, she scurried away. At some point, Shen Wei had come up beside him. With a small cough, he deliberately positioned himself between Zhao Yunlan and the retreating young woman, who was sneaking a peek back at him. Zhao Yunlan glanced at him with a hint of a smile. He gave Shen Wei's scarf a tug and leaned in close, lips almost brushing Shen Wei's ear, voice pitched so no one else could hear. He asked, "Did you catch cold? What are you coughing for?" Shen Wei took an alarmed step back. If he'd been wearing a long robe, he probably would have gathered his sleeves, lowered his head, and said, "Two men mustn't openly touch in broad daylight." That has a footnote, a play on a common saying. There cannot be direct contact between men and women, which refers to strict rules from a bygone era regarding bodily contact between unmarried men and women. It's the gay version, all right. Zhao Yunlan couldn't help but laugh quietly. The tips of Shen Wei's ears reddened, and he abruptly changed the subject. "What are you looking at?" After a sweeping glance at Go Cheng Chung, who was standing a bit away from them, Zhao Yunlan briefly summarized what he'd been told. Yeah, they're not going to get nearly as much work done as they normally would, from now on. Forever and ever, amen. They're never going to be as productive. Are you kidding? Now that boyfriends are on the case? Now that husbands are on the case? No. Shen Wei listened, then thought for a moment before answering seriously. His third eye hasn't been opened, but there's something quite unusual about him. I feel as though he's able to see echoes of the past through reflective surfaces. What? Zhao Yunlan's eyebrows shot up. What do you mean? Think back to when we first met at Dragon City University, when I suddenly arrived and interrupted your investigation, Shen Wei said. The night before, when I heard that an accident had taken place at the school, I suspected it might have something to do with the escaped hunger ghost. I sent a puppet to investigate the victim's dorm room. The puppet left before daybreak, but later, when this young man climbed into the window, a fascinating connection sprang to life between him and my puppet. I felt him looking through the glass and seeing my puppet climbing out the window the previous night. That's why I came. At the time, I didn't realize you were there. To be precise, he'd been unaware because the shit-stirring Chaos King of the Quay had purposefully interfered with his ability to sense Zhao Yunlan's location. When Guo Chengcheng had written his report about the incident, he had mentioned seeing a skull in the window and something about there being a person cloaked in black in the skull's eyes. But since most of the report had been useless bullshit, Zhao Yunlan had dismissed it and used the paper as a coaster. So you think there may actually be some legless person or a ghost peeping through this window? Zhao Yunlan asked. Not now, but maybe at some point last night or even before. Mm-hmm. Didn't you say that the 2 new poisoning victims were sent here at midnight? If I'd hurt someone, I might also want to come and see for myself exactly what happened to them. Zhao Yunlan smirked. You hurt someone? You can't even kiss except in secret. Once yet another train comes rocketing through the desert. Shen Wei was far too much of a gentleman to bear even whispering to each other about such intimate things in public. His ears felt as if they were on fire. In a slightly louder whisper, he scolded, "Don't talk nonsense." Zhao Yunlan shut his mouth, but not his eyes. As the saying went, beauties had bright eyes, and those eyes could speak volumes. Director Zhao's eyes went a step further and conveyed pure lechery. Shen Wei, unable to endure that gaze languidly caressing him from head to toe, turned and escaped to the patient's room. We're never getting anything done again. These poor people in this hospital are going to drop fucking dead. There's no help for anyone. I don't even know where the fuck I am, where I'm supposed to be, what's happening. Help! When the 3 of them arrived, they were greeted by an officer with a worry-worn face. After showing each other their IDs, the officer, who had introduced himself as Xiao Li, grabbed hold of Zhao Yunlan's arm and his expression turned bitter. "It's a relief you're finally here. I've been waiting for you all morning." Zhao Yunlan glanced into the room. "Aren't there 3 victims? Why is one missing?" "The one who came in yesterday isn't doing so great," Officer Li said. "He's in the ICU. I think these 2 will be joining him there soon." "What makes you say that?" asked Zhao Yunlan. "At first, the patient couldn't stop yelling about how his legs hurt," said Officer Li. "He was in so much pain that he was just rolling around on the bed. Once he finally quieted down, he was like a fish out of water. His eyes were open, but he was unable to speak, and he completely ignored everyone. Every so often he would twitch and seem to lose all feeling in his legs. He eventually went into shock. Is this really poison? I've worked this job for many years, and I've never heard of any poison causing symptoms like these." Lose all feeling in his legs? Just like that one ghoul or whatever the hell it was didn't have any legs? Huh. You're right, it might not be poisoning. The look Zhao Yunlan directed at him seemed deep and cold, as if his words had some hidden meaning. It might not be poison. Might be ghosts. Like, he can't say that. Officer Lee shivered. Zhao Yunlan patted him on the shoulder. Anyway, the hospital hasn't reached any conclusions yet. Anything is possible. Let me see the victims. The doctors, nurses, and patients' families were asked to temporarily clear the room. Once only the two profoundly afflicted patients were left, wailing and screaming in a chorus of agony, Zhao Yunlan swept his eyes over them both. He then briskly knocked one unconscious and turned his attention to Go Cheng-chung. Did you bring your notebook? Go Cheng-chung nodded hurriedly. Take notes. Zhao Yunlan bent down and addressed the victim, who was still awake. Ma'am, do your legs hurt? The victim was a middle-aged woman who was in too much pain to lie still. The hospital staff had had no choice but to restrain her to the bed. She nodded, eyes shimmering with tears. Next, Zhao Yunlan got out his wallet, a wallet that held no cards or money. He opened it, revealing a thick stack of yellow paper talismans. He leafed through them, explaining to Go Cheng-chung as he went. Paper talismans are very important tools. Ideally, you'd store them in some sort of order so you weren't scrambling to find the right one when you need it. Of course, learning to use them is an art all its own. Unbelievably, this unpredictable boss was settling in to deliver a leisurely lecture while the victim cried out like a pig at slaughter. Go Cheng-chung lacked the mental strength for it. With more than half of his attention taken by the screaming woman, it made him feel particularly restless. Now, for situations like hers, Zhao Yunlan folded the middle-aged woman's ear forward so that they could see behind it. Your third eye hasn't been opened, so you can't see merits, but you can check it with the help of a very basic talisman. He pulled out a paper talisman and held it out to Go Cheng-chung. This one will open your third eye. Go Cheng-chung was about to close his fingers on the talisman when Zhao Yunlan's hand snapped up and stuck it unerringly on his brow. Like this, Zhao Yunlan said. Completely unprepared, Go Cheng-chung felt an indescribable iciness from the talisman. There was somehow a weight to it, piercing him like a sharp knife. His vision blurred and the world changed right before his eyes, but in a way he couldn't quite identify. Come take a look, Zhao Yunlan beckoned him closer. Go Cheng-chung hastily looked down and was shocked to see that the victim on the bed was now shrouded in a layer of black mist. Her face, which had only looked slightly haggard before, now appeared very strange indeed. A faint aura of death radiated from her, as if she already had one foot in the grave. Her legs had looked just fine before, but were now completely encased by the black mist, creating the illusion that there were only two uneven stumps. Finally, he looked at her again and saw a large mark behind it, a grayish sort of color, not very dark, that nearly covered her entire neck. It might have been an unusual birthmark. A darkness like this behind someone's ear indicates that they are lacking in merits, Shenwei explained. The Book of Life and Death records all the merits of a person's life. Every time a person commits evil, the handprint of a little ghoul marks the back of their ear. The darker the color, the more heinous the crime. The print we see here isn't dark, but it covers a substantial area, indicating that while she has never caused any grievous harm, she is likely very selfish and has committed an endless stream of petty sins. Shenwei paused, then added, Of course, her evils don't warrant death. Hurting her this severely is taking things a little too far. Go Cheng-chung nodded timidly and hurried to make a note. But before he'd finished writing, it struck him that something was very strange about all this. His head snapped around and he stared at Shenwei in shock. What are you looking at? Zhao Yunlan pushed his head back. He's the real monster. It just took me a while to recognize what was right in front of me. As he spoke, he pulled out another talisman. This one was also placed in front of Go Cheng-chung for him to study. This is a simple talisman for dispelling evil. It's fairly basic, so it doesn't always work. That's fine if it doesn't. It'll help us gauge the strength of what we're up against. Go Cheng-chung was silent, unable to imagine how hearing that might have made the woman on the bed feel. Zhao Yunlan slapped the yellow paper talisman down onto her, causing a massive ball of black gas to spew from her body. It shot up like a menacing geyser, only to be knocked partway back when it hit the ceiling. A contorted face took shape in mid-air, mouth wide open as it howled hysterically at them. It all happened in a flash. One moment, Zhao Yunlan had been delivering a lecture on theory, and now they were in a haunted house. Go Cheng-chung screamed and bolted for the door, but Director Zhao, as though he had eyes in the back of his head, dragged Go Cheng-chung back by the collar. Keeping a firm hand on Go Cheng-chung, Zhao Yunlan studied the black mist. Weird, he murmured. Why is there so much resentment? Ghost! Yelped Go Chang Chung. Ghost! 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 Zhao Yunlan snorted. Like you've never seen a ghost before. Why would I have ordered you to join me if I wasn't expecting any? A powerful bolt of electricity burst from Go Chang Chung's pocket. With the wisdom of experience, Zhao Yunlan immediately let go and backed out of the way. The black shadow hanging in the air met the same fate as the huge knife in the Hanga tribe's secret tunnel. We hadn't asked it anything yet. No one told you to kill it. Zhao Yunlan slapped the back of Go Chang Chung's head. Go Chang Chung was on the brink of tears. I'm scared. Can't you hold it in for a while? Zhao Yunlan demanded. Not everyone's the dashing hero, Zhao. From day one, Go Chang Chung had both feared and respected his boss. Even if Zhao Yunlan unleashed a toxic fart, he would treat it as a divine utterance and think the boss had made an excellent point. So upon hearing this, Go Chang Chung made an immediate attempt to obediently contain his terror. He tried until his face was beet red, but he couldn't stop trembling with fear. Voice thin as a mosquito's buzz, he said, I really can't hold it in. The pointed side-eye Zhao Yunlan gave him lasted until Go Chang Chung was shaking badly enough that there was a real risk of another 10,000-volt discharge. And then, unexpectedly, his heartless boss laughed. You sure do keep things interesting. Go Chang Chung only blinked. It seemed like a strange compliment. Don't bully him, scolded Shen Wei. Meanwhile, the stricken woman finally managed to do more than gawk at them. Moving with great difficulty, she knelt on the bed and bowed to Go Chang Chung. Thank you, immortal. Thank you, young immortal. Overcome with embarrassment, he stammered, No, He was utterly tongue-tied, face and ears ablaze. A crackle from his pocket was the only warning before his stun baton generated a fireball that nearly ignited Zhao Yunlan's jacket. Okay, please stop bowing to him. If you're not careful, he's gonna blow. Zhao Yunlan gestured to the woman, keeping 2 meters between himself and Go Chang Chung. I just want to ask you a few things. I hope you'll cooperate. When she eagerly nodded, he asked, Yesterday, were you hospitalized after you ate an orange you bought on the roadside? Yes, she said. It was already dark by then. I'd gone to the supermarket to buy a few things, and when I came out, I happened to see someone selling oranges by the side of the road. Zhao Yunlan interrupted. Did you notice the fruit seller on your way into the store? She thought about it, then hesitantly said, I don't think so. No, I'm sure. I was keeping an eye out for fruit vendors along the way, so I would have noticed him before going in. So the fruit seller had been deliberately waiting for her. What did this person look like? A man. He was awfully skinny and had such a ratty knitted hat. I think maybe he was wearing a cotton coat? Gray? Maybe? What about his legs? His legs? She froze for a second before the memory came back to her. Oh, right, I remember. Something seemed wrong with his legs. He walked with a limp. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have remembered. I sure hope he isn't a cripple with a prosthetic leg. Without waiting for a response, she began to ramble. Let me tell you, oh great immortal, people like that are all messed up. Cripples, mutes, whatever kind of disability they have, it doesn't matter. Their hearts are all twisted up because they're a missing part of their body. Of course someone like that would go around poisoning people. If you ask me, everyone like that should be rounded up in one place so someone can keep an eye on them. It's not like they can do anything but disrupt society after all. Damn, can we get the bitch another orange? Shit! It was becoming clear to Zhao Yunlan how this woman had wound up with that handprint-sized mark behind her ear. Some people just plain lacked one of the 5 virtues from the day they were born, and as a result, tiny but aggressive evils seeped from their very pores. None of them were deadly, but every one of them had a vicious bite. Just like... This fucking bitch. Okay. Whew. The diatribe. Oh God. The diatribe continued. For example, there's a deaf man living near me. He can't find a wife, so he got a stupid dog. Every time his door opened, you could hear that damn dog barking, and of course he couldn't hear it, being deaf and all, so he never did a damn thing about all that yapping. I can't believe I waited so long to buy that rat poison. I should have killed the thing sooner. A dozen oranges. A dozen oranges shoved down the throat of this bitch. Why are we saving her? Okay. All right. Zhao Yunlan ran out of patience. He stared straight into the woman's eyes and mercilessly overpowered her mind. She finally fell silent, blank eyes rolling back in her skull, and went down head first. Speaking flatly into her ear, the stone-faced Zhao Yunlan said, "Something you ate disagreed with you, so you just went to the bathroom. It's all out of your system now, but you slipped and stepped in your own shit. You won't be able to get that stink out of your nose for at least a month." The chaotic good by disaster we deserve. Oh. Whew. As Zhao Yunlan's words grew ever worse, Shen Wei gave a pointed cough. The hot policemen who came by this afternoon were following normal procedure. They asked about the person selling the poisoned oranges, and while they were at it, they educated certain citizens a little. Shen Wei cleared his throat. "That's all. Take some time and reflect on that." Take some time and reflect on that. Oh, that's going right next to Little Cabbage. Oh, page 70. Whew. After he was finally finished with her, Zhao Yunlan was the last one to leave the room. From the doorway, he looked back with an evil smile. "Have a nice nightmare, ma'am." King of my heart. Shen Wei, afraid he might launch into a full-on reenactment. Sorry, hang on. They clocked my formative years with this one. Shen Wei, afraid he might launch into a full-on reenactment of the ring in the woman's ear, dragged him out. She doesn't know the person who poisoned her. As soon as he was out of the room, Zhao Yunlan snapped straight back into training Go Changcheng. The karmic line under her eyelid isn't very deep. Presumably, she wasn't poisoned by the dog she offed. In circumstances like these, the most likely scenario is that the person doing the poisoning is just harming people for no reason. Go Changcheng's pen flew furiously as he scribbled in his little notebook. Zhao Yunlan slowed his speech and let him catch up a bit before continuing. If that woman had had a direct connection with the culprit, for example, if she'd killed someone and they came back for revenge, that would be none of our business. Laws in the mortal realm don't allow for revenge, but once a person crosses the threshold of yin and yang, the law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is as natural as night and day. Go Changcheng nodded continuously as he listened. But the fruit seller was a stranger to her. That and the faint karmic line meant that there was only the shallowest of connections between them, like one of them might have stepped on the other's foot or something small like that. So if a violent ghost is deliberately harming people for some reason, we have the authority not only to arrest it, but to take care of it on the spot. Go Changcheng subconsciously patted the jacket pocket holding his stun baton. The corner of Zhao Yunlan's lips twitched. "Call Juhong and tell her to get the higher-ups to expedite our paperwork. I want full authority in this situation by tonight, so get a move on." Maddie, maybe he kills rude people. Maybe it's eat the rude. Huh. That's the end of the chapter, by the way. And we are nice and tidily coming in at 5 o'clock. So we are on page 73 for chapter 6, and that is where we are stopping for today. Making a note of that. And holy shit. Oh, wow. I'm angry at her. I don't like her. I dislike her. I am fast on the train towards hating this woman. Cruel and unusual. Cruel and unusual. Absolutely not. Oh yeah, we've been through it. This stream. This stream was a real bonding experience. We'll now have war stories about that one time we read chapter 4 of Guardian. Oh. Damn. All right. Well, I'm going to go. I hope you guys had a damn blast. I had some kind of time. It was a blast. It was a time. I don't know. Get back to me. I need a couple of business days. Check back. Just check back. I stream gay things. I read gay things. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, soon to be Eastern Daylight Time. I hope you're having a good week. I hope the rest of the week treats you well. I can no longer speak. I've got to go. Please take care of yourselves. Definitely better than certain characters in this book. And I will see you on Thursday at the same time for Chapter 6 of Volume 2 of Guardian. I love you very, very much. I will see you on Thursday.